This is the rotor valve, where we've got the 6 rubber valves, and always after some time you have to control that these rubber valves are okay, so it's airtight. To remove them, you can take the top plate off, but the easiest one is to take the gear out and the back plate. In here we have the motor, gear motor for the stoker auger, feeding the fuel into the burner tube. When you do the startup and the rotating auger or whatever delivering the fuel, when it stops, the rotor valve and the stoker auger runs an after run. Depends on what model it is, but on the CS model in 25 seconds to run it empty. So it pushes all the fuel into the burner tube, so there's no risk for backburn. Even though we've got a sprinkler system with an expansion tank, so if the water pressure is away, we've got a control valve here, so there's always water pressure on the tank. The rotor valve is also function as a backburn protection. So we've got 2, plus we run empty each time. This is the control panel, the control box for the ash scraper in the bottom of the burner tube. And this is that actuator placed here under the auger channel, and it will work from the one sensor to the front sensor, stop again and turn and go back again. And it goes very slowly. Inside here the box there is a small PLC where you can adjust the time of the time between the sensor works, or the scraper. Here we've got the burner tube. It's water cooled. We've got a circulation pump here on the floor here. And on the CS module, this one always has to be in stage 3. In this position. Now there's no water on this boiler here, but then it will run with 22 watt. We take the power off again. This is the water pressure sensor, so if the water pressure in the system is too low, it shuts off. But with some of the container units where we've got an open expansion tank, this one is not here, we've got a water level sensor in the expansion tank. This pump here circulates the water up to the bottom of the burner tube, and the water circulates inside the burner tube, comes back to the top, and into the boiler again. We have a safety valve here, so if the pump stops working or the 2 flexible hoses here get stopped with some heavy thick boiler water, you have this safety valve for safety, or when somebody closes the valves. And then we also have a sensor here in the top of the burner tube in the small water chamber that feels if the temperature gets too high in the water. This sprinkler valve will open for water through a cooling coil placed in the water chamber of the burner tube. If this one opens for protection of the water chamber, the water outlet is in the bottom, 180 degrees in that direction. The water comes out. And if it has been in function, it has to check that the valve has closed again and no water is dripping out on the outlet. Here we have the 2 combustion fans for the burner tube. It depends on which model it is, but this is CS150. Got 2 fans on. Here we've got the fan for the exhaust. It's controlled by a regulator on the control panel, and it measures the pressure, the under pressure in the boiler, in the door end, in the side of the boiler. Over here on the wall we have the shunt valve, electrical regulated motor valve, and it's always placed on return line. So this is the return, the cold water coming back to the system, and this is a forward line going away from the boiler. And we always want 60 degree in return temperature. So we are over the compensate point. And you can always adjust that after that temperature gauge placed there on return pipe. Here we have the bypass handle, and it's for you can adjust, you can say summer, winter, so you can adjust your smoke temperature in the chimney so you don't get condensate. This is the lambda probe for regulating the amount of fuel coming into the boiler. And it's regulated by the control panel here. Sorry, the text is in Danish at the moment. Hopefully that's okay. This is a lambda probe regulation, and it's regulated after the O2 value, which is regulated after the output of the boiler. Here we have the display for the for regulating the fan on the chimney. And here we've set it on, we want 15 Pascal under pressure in the boiler. We can't test it now because the chimney is stopped. And the main pump for the system, different size, depends on the installation. In here we've got two frequency converter. We've got a frequency converter, VLT as you also call it, for the chimney fan, and this is for the two exhaust fans. And different relays, and up here we've got the vacuum box, and we've got a filter on the vacuum sensor so we don't get dirt in it. Here we have emergency stop. Here we have the main stop. This is where we feel the under pressure in the boiler. Here we can, if we open the door and want to clean the boiler, we can pressure this button and we go into manually fan exhaust. It'll rev up. So when you open the door, the fan will rev up and you take the smoke and the dust into the boiler instead. Here we've got the ash auger. Sorry, it's in Danish. But you can run it manually. You can shut it off, or you can run it over as an auto. So it runs over the control panel the time you set there. Here you have the heat exchanger cleaning. It's a blast by air pressure, and it runs over time in the control panel where it starts with the one valve, and then it's open the valve for 4 seconds, and it cleans in the one side. Then there goes 4, 5, 6 minutes, depends on what is in the control panel. Then number 2 valve goes off. The time between is for that the compressor has time to be loaded up with air. And then by the time set in the computer, the next valve comes on again, perhaps in 3 or 4 or 5 hours. It's better to clean with a low pressure often instead of a high pressure, very rare. Because if you have a very high pressure, you can blow a bit of dust out somewhere. We prefer to clean with a pressure about 4.5 bar on the compressor. This is if you want to watch into the burner tube, see the flame, remember to shut it off again so it won't get dirt with the glass. In here we see the burner tube. In the bottom of the boiler here, there is the ash auger channel where the ash auger is going out to the one on the other side. In the burner tube, we've got, this is a CS150, and it's the same on the CS250. We've got 4 rings with holes in, and 1 ring in the back with no air holes in. That's a preheating zone. In the middle you can see the auger coming out, and in the bottom in the middle the ash scraper. It works by this actuator and walks around 25 centimeters forward and back again, and goes back to the back ring with no air holes in, so it's protected. It can be worn out over time, but because it's a hard surface in there, but the piece of metal it's made in the same stainless steel as the burn tube rings. Remember, by maintenance, the front ring here, closest to you here, is a ring with no collar on, no ring on, welded on. So when we take the rings out, before we take the 6 motors off here in the end, clean the burner tube completely, especially in the back end under the auger, for example with a vacuum cleaner. Then we take the 6 motors off and take the rings out one by one. Remember to mark them with numbers, so when you put them back in again, they're in the same position. When you take them out, you drill all the holes up and you clean it with a grinder, very smooth on each end of the rings, so when you put them in again, they fit together, metal. And then before you put them in, you clean in the distance between the rings and the water chamber, if there's some dust falling down there over time. Then in with the ring, and those 6 motors here, you should not tighten them very hard, just light by hand. I think that's that.